Hey, everyone. The White House wants us to enter a golden age of AI. I feel like it's dying before it's born. You're watching TechStrong, gang. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Friday. I feel like I was just on here saying Monday, welcome back from the weekend. But we're here on Friday. We've got a great Friday gang lineup with some interesting topics to discuss. Let me introduce you to these interesting people. We've got, if you've watched the gang, they're regulars here. We've got the one and only Ira Winkler. We've got Fred Wilmot, Mr. CISO. Well, actually, he's multi-time CISO, but now founder of his own company. Fred? Well, we'll come back to you. We'll give you a chance to plug that. And our marketing person extraordinaire, Lisa Martin, as well as the Dean, still licking his wounds over yet another Yankee loss, Mike Vizard. Gang, welcome. So, Fred, before we go further, we got Black Hat coming up. Ira, I thought you said you may not be making it to Black Hat this year, right? Or have plans changed?
Not sure. It's like 50-50, I think, at the moment.
All right, we're gonna wait. We'll give you more time. But Fred, you're going to be there, and your company is
the tech team. Yeah. So what basically what we're going to be doing there is really focused hard on some of the things we're going to talk about a little bit today. But what we do is we take and transform the static sort of expert-driven behaviors of trying to write detections over a long period of time at large companies and small companies, and democratize that and automate that and bring some of the continuous automation behind a development lifecycle to detection engineering. So what used to take 3 or 4 weeks to figure out how to write stuff for this brand new ransomware kind of example, we can generate data that tests whether or not your infrastructure is prepared for that today, and then generate detections and push them for you, in 20 minutes. So the intent there is really buying down the risk.
Cool. Hey, I like to let people know, they could go look you up online, but what the heck? Anyway, thank you for that. Mike, another announcement from the talking heads at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. They want to usher in a golden age.
On the face of it, you might find that there's a lot to like here. On one hand, they are saying that they're going to get rid of some of the regulatory hurdles that prevent us from building the data centers that we need for AI. They are talking about making investments with strategic AI partners. So, we're all going to kind of benefit from that. Maybe there'll be more choices for GPUs and AI accelerators. On the face of it, at least, there's a lot of things in here that sound like things that the IT community wants. I mean, you get this whole, as you read it, you get this whole, USA chant going with it. I got my little flag here, the whole 9 yards.
Nice.
But
they call that a prop in the business, but go ahead.
But there are concerning things in here. It does seem to be very much America first and a little light on security and almost no concern for environmental impact. But Alan, what's your take on what's going on here? Maybe what is the role of the government in all this AI stuff?
I could sum it up. What is it? What's the song about fools rush in where wise men fear to tread? It's not a song, but it's a saying. Wise men fear to tread where fools rush in. Who's the fools? And
I think that might be an old Ben Franklin thing, I think.
Okay, we'll go with Ben Franklin. He was a wise man. But clearly, look, there's a lot to like, there's a lot not to like. Are we going to build AI data centers at the expense of clean water, clean air, faulty, are we going back to Love Canal? Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. We've got to leave our children a world, I hope. Number one. Number two, you know what? Frankly, I'm so jaded and callous to these announcements where everyone's coming up and bending knee and supposedly opening a checkbook and telling us about how much they're going to spend on these AI factories. And then the third thing is, the more we play with AI, the more we hear and see things going on, the more convinced than ever I am, and I agree with Ira on this, we got to build security in here, man. We can't afford to do the usual. We'll worry about security later, because this is it's going to wind up not good. And then the other thing is, you can't make wine before it's time. I think the promise of AI is phenomenal. But it's going to take time to develop, to evolve, to be used, to be refined, and get to where we want it to be. Rushing headlong in here like bulls in a china shop, I just don't think, I'm not sure it's the right thing. I don't think you could have a golden age till it has an age.
Well, Alan, could I? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Ira.
So here's the problem. So there were a few things I saw in the bill, like, we're going to rush out data centers. In the first place, there's just so many places you can put data centers, and then you have the not in my backyard thing, where everybody says we don't want regulation, and okay, so we're going to take away some of the regulation to put it, because really what these are football, it's like the old days of the NSA has football fields worth of supercomputers or something in the
Ira, they're not football fields. They want to build them the size of Manhattan.
Oh, no, I understand, but then you have to figure where can they actually put them? And when you figure where they can put them, frankly, you're talking about places like the middle of nowhere, like in flyover stand. And that comes up to issue number one. Then the people are going to be like, okay, not in my backyard. Because, in some places, I'm not going to argue whether windmills are good or bad, but some people don't want windmills. Some people love them because it makes great use of increases their property values in flyover stand. But then the next thing that's kind of concerning is this rhetoric of, we're not going to have woke AI. That's AI, again, is mathematics, and people lose track of that. And how the AI handles facts sometimes. People don't like the facts. Like Grok was too woke, so they made Grok a Nazi. And, you have to start to look at, okay, I think that's a lot of rhetoric where people are just going to develop the math that they do. And then at the same time, the one thing that keeps coming back to me is we're building these data centers, and we're missing a buzzword. I hate buzzwords, but we have AI as a buzzword. The one buzzword that we're failing to look at is quantum computing. And the reason I say this is going to be an issue is, yes, you need lots of computing power to process all the data going into AI algorithms. But once we get quantum computing, which give or take is 5-6 years away, we're not going to need Central Park's worth of computing power. We're going to have much more computing power in a little bit of things. So we're going to start to develop these data centers that are going to be obsolete in a few years should quantum computing hit its prime. And so
I don't disagree. So, Ira, let me just paraphrase one of the points you made, which is, and it goes to Mike's America First thing. In one hand, they're saying you can have all these things, but with it comes handcuffs. With it comes conditions that it's got to be America first, that it's got to be U.S., that it's got to be under the subject. You're going to be subject to whether someone wakes up with a feather up their butt and decides you're not allowed to do business with someone because they're prosecuting a former dictator or something. That's not, we don't need those kinds of strings. We don't need, this is America, right? We need a private public partnership, but we don't need government controlled AI.
I'm not really sure about the quantum argument because we are building a massive data center in Poughkeepsie with IBM for quantum computing. It'll take a few years to build, but it's big. It's not just a smaller thing. Maybe it's smaller than the size of Manhattan, but it's still going to need a lot of data centers for both. Lisa, though, I wanted to get your opinion here because a lot of this, as Alan pointed out, traces back to this Valley vibe, which says go fast and break things. And in the case of AI, it seems like the risk of breaking things is really high. And, it's not about the fact that I just broke an application and it was unavailable for an hour.
So I look at this from a marketing message perspective, and I try to look at it neutrally without some of the obvious concerns. I was just watching the news a half an hour ago about all the woke AI and doesn't like the term artificial, and I just thought that's just nonsense. But if I look at it from a marketing message perspective, what I heard was, okay, there's an action plan in an effort because what the White House wants is the U.S. to remain a leader in the AI industry, this golden age. And I heard investing in AI R&D, building an AI talent pipeline. We've been talking for weeks about the AI talent wars, promoting AI adoption across industries. And I thought what I didn't hear was collaboration. I didn't hear security. You bring up a great point. I didn't hear quantum. I wasn't listening for it, but you bring up a great point that we didn't hear about that. But I just think, what's the alternative? If the message is, okay, the future of AI is now, you got to join the golden age of innovation and growth, and we've got to invest in R&D, we've got to develop talent and adopt technologies to stay ahead of the curve. What's the alternative? I didn't hear that, but I also didn't hear collaboration, and that's going to be absolutely critical for us to be successful in a safe and secure way.
I agree with you. I mean, look, I'm hearing friends leaving CISA who the security aspect of this is just getting scarier. I'm not saying we're going to have Skynet that decides to destroy all carbon-based life forms, right, out of Star Trek or something, Voyager. But, I mean, the damage it can do,
So, to your point, though, I mean, I guess this was positioned as, the U.S. has an industrial policy as it applies to AI, but I don't feel like this is a policy as much as it is just kind of an invitation to not have a policy, maybe.
Yeah, it's like everything else that this administration does. It's a PR kind of front, and when you go past that first inch, it's kind of all murky TBDs. That's it.
Not a lot of depth.
Yeah, no, well, they don't call him Shallow Hal Taco for nothing. All right. I don't have anything else to say.
I was just wondering if maybe they used AI to write the 90-point plan. What do you think?
They do that.
Yeah, it'll be like, I'm sure there are a few hallucinations in there, but I mean, I understand all the concern, but I mean, there's just so much rhetoric. It's just going to go on for so long to build these data centers anyway that, it's like, the goals in there that sound authoritarian is the word.
Right.
I just don't, I mean, maybe I'm too naive on this, but it's just, I don't expect much ability for them to follow up on some of those other lofty goals. I mean, it sounds good. They're going to build lots of data, maybe they'll build the data centers. You still need to come up with billions of dollars for it. The government's not doing it. So private industry is going to do it. And, frankly,
that sounds like Mexico's building the wall and they didn't, Mexico's
yeah, that's the wall. The point. I still expect Saudi Arabia to put the data centers in their desert, not our desert. Yeah, and that's what I think would more likely happen with data centers. Because the good or bad about AI data centers is you want the results. You don't care where the results theoretically you should care who's making the results. But if the results are coming from Saudi Arabia, it takes an extra quarter of a second to get here.
Yeah.
And so if they're going to build these large data centers somewhere else, because you can say what you want, but it's expensive to put, build
I know, but
massive
we
data centers.
we live in an age of IT sovereignty. They want everything here, and as a result of that, other people are saying, if that's the way it's going to be, I want my stuff in my place too. I mean, globalism as we knew it is dying.
Well, there's globalism, but there's business. And the one thing, frankly, is you could say what you want, but these people are going to go for how many hundreds of billions of dollars were supposed to flow into the U.S. that were big campaign statements and ended, and I'll leave it, and never happened.
Agreed. It's the usual BS that comes out of there. We're overtime on this though, guys. Let's pull.
Last thing on this one thing is be wary of real estate scams, right? Because a lot of this is going to wind up being a real estate scam.
Yeah, wouldn't be the first time. All right, let's take a break here on The Gang. We're going to come back and talk about fan experience reimagined. That sounds uplifting. You're watching TechStrong, Gang.
Discover TechStrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with TechStrong Group.
All right, to Alan's point, we are going to shift gears to something that's hopefully more uplifting, but I'm not entirely sure. We're seeing the fan experience is changing rapidly because of advances in sports tech, everything from analytics to even AI. And it's an interesting time because we're heading into the back half of the baseball season. Preseason of football will start up next month, and before you know, we'll be playing hockey and basketball again. And every time I turn around, Lisa, somebody is throwing a stat at me. And but I'm not clear that this is for better, because most of what I get presented with is really arcane, borderline inane, in that it's like on Tuesdays for the last 10 years, after 3 o'clock, but before 5 o'clock, the shortstop has gotten ahead for this team. Who cares? And so I think we're kind of getting a little too data happy in sports tech, but I'm not sure. What's your take from a marketer? What do you see here?
From a marketing perspective, I had mixed feelings on this. And then I kind of looked at it from, well, there are 6 generations alive today, probably attending games. So what these networks are doing is they're trying to go where the fans are. Certain generations will love this, certain won't. Like you watch a broadcast and then you get hit with a QR code, whether you're watching the pregame or in-game, and it takes you to a different experience. I think what they're doing is modern marketing. They're trying to meet fans where they are using technologies. Fan engagement helps teams and sponsors build deeper engagement, deeper connections with fans, with brand partners. I think it's smart modern marketing. Not everyone is going to want this. I know that some networks have been doing this. My San Francisco Giants do it frequently, where they will take games off of the local networks and put them on Roku or streaming services. And my mom hates that because she's silent generation and doesn't necessarily understand technology and just wants to find the game. But I think what they're trying to do is they're not really alone in redefining fan experience, but they're trying to go where the fans are. I see beneficiaries, fans, broadcasters, sponsors creating this second screen experience that I think you can either lean into or you can ignore. I like some of the stats. I think it's cool that it kind of brings in technology to the everyday fan consumer kind of thing. So I'm excited to see where this goes. We've also seen this in Formula One. I'm a big Formula One fan. Really, really data heavy sport. When I think it makes even more sense there, we're seeing the rise of smart stadiums where it's really redefining this entire experience, as Alan said. And I think it's a positive. And like I said, I think you can lean into it or you can ignore it.
I had a few thoughts on this one, if I could. So, Lisa, I agree with a lot of what you said. I put them into different buckets. So there's the second screen alternate experience, which to me the best example is watching the Manning brothers do Monday Night Football. It's a lot more interesting and funny than the usual ESPN commentators who are no Dandy Don, Frank Gifford, and Howard Cosell. But really, I think when we talk about the fan experience and the real-time stats, like Mike, it started with the AWS, 3rd and 6. There's a 68% chance he's going to throw long on the left side. But now it's gotten, now Google Cloud is in there too. If the golfer bangs his putter 2 times on the ground before he hits the putt, there's a 60% chance he's going to miss the putt. And if he only bangs it once, there's a 58%. If he doesn't bang it at all, who gives a flying hoot?
Well,
that's
some of it.
No, but hold on. I just want, but you know what this is really about? It's about gambling. It's about gambling because they're going to get to the point where you watch this on your screen, and when that quarterback walks up under the center, you could say he's throwing left, he's throwing right, what the odds are, right? Because we're going to need to know what those stats are to make odds. And you got people who will bet on cockroaches climbing up a wall, and they're going to want to bet on, did he throw 15 yards to the left or 30 yards to the right or over the middle for 2, and bang, and that action, that adrenaline junkie rush, because there are degenerate gamblers out there who love that stuff. And I think that's who this stuff is aimed at.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
I mean, I tend to think that this has always been a niche. Most people just want to go to a game and enjoy the game, get excited about it and things like that. They're talking about, but then they're talking about feeding the data to you in real time and everything like that of what the stats are. And we've had that, as you're saying, like when you watch this, there's like a 58% blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff. And it started to seep in. The thing is, like you're saying, some people are going to like it. Some people are going to be indifferent, and some people are going to love it and figure out how to monetize it.
Yeah.
And it's like everything else, because, we're getting data into just about everything. And when people are there, you're talking about, what is it? The fantasy football leagues and stuff like that. These people are going to love that. We're talking Moneyball, like, that movie.
Yeah.
And some people, I think this is just going to be a business aspect of where sports are going, because there's when you hit a wall to what else you can do, it behooves these leagues to start figuring out, how can I go through the wall and do something different and make it more exciting? Now, how many people are going to make use of it? That's up to them. But I don't know. I just think the people who want it, everybody else is going to get sick of it if it gets too intrusive.
Right. That's a great point.
All right.
It has to balance.
I just want a dial that says I can turn this up or down. I don't want to have to go to
the NBA has something like that. The NBA on ESPN has, like, not on the main ESPN, but if you go to like ESPN 2 or ESPN 3, I figure out which one it is, you could just watch the game. There's no commentators. There's no nothing. It's a little quiet. All you hear is the crowd, but you could just watch the game. And, during the Knicks playoff run last year, I actually started watching that. It was easy, right? You could watch the game. I know enough about basketball. If it goes in the basket, I know it scores points. What do I need all the other nonsense? But anyway, hey, it's going to be interesting. And as I said, for those gamblers out there, this is all about you. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Let's come back. I wanted to save a little time for this next one. Talking about ransomware. Is it dying? Is it morphing? Malware never goes away. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey folks, we're back, and yes, we're talking about ransomware, and there's multiple reports, one in which Alan covered on Security Boulevard, talking about, well, ransomware may be dying, there's fewer instances of it, and yet there's also, all on Security Boulevard, at least 2 articles identifying new flavors of ransomware that have emerged, and so it seems like the bad guys keep building this stuff, but maybe they're being less effective with it, who knows? But Alan, you've been looking at this space for a long time. What's your take here?
So we used to, when we said ransomware, we used to think about somehow using phishing or whatever, they would get access to your system, they'd encrypt your system and hold your data hostage unless you paid, and then they unencrypted it. I think that, let's call that pure old ransomware. I think that pure old ransomware, as the stats in the article I cited, that is down. And it's down because people are wiser to it. They have off-prem copies. The cyber insurance companies got involved. I think we do a little better with it. But ransomware itself has morphed. There's DDoS ransomware. It's basically, look, I'm going to do any of these laundry list of bad things that are going to prevent you from doing business unless you pay me. And so there are new variants, new attack vectors, it's the story of security, the cat and mouse game. They're always coming up. Fred, Ira, you've seen this a long time.
Wait, well, I wanted to bring Fred in here for a second. Hold on.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think maybe on the net, the overall sort of attack surface of what people are referring to as ransomware the last 4 months may be down. I don't see that at all. Actually, and some of these currents that have been around for a while, like Alan said, I mean, there are just different permutations of things happening here with specific ransomware groups. And one of the things that's intriguing about it is we don't really see a lot of different vectors, right? There are some pretty common things. And, to Jimmy's point earlier, I think some of these vectors are so common, right? The mutation of the way that ransomware manifests is changing. You're finding groups taking different types of approaches to, stay current. There's been some crackdown on ransomware, but ultimately you've got, groups that are now providing legal advice to other groups in order to make sure that, they can, subvert DOJ at this location or that. But by and large, you're seeing optimization of things that already exist. So when we talk about whether or not ransomware is dead, absolutely not. And whether or not the ransomware groups that are prolific today, we'll talk about, Crux and Burt, but, Scattered Spider has had a resurgence, like a massive resurgence over the last month. Just this last weekend, we also saw a couple of drops of O-days for Microsoft remote, code execution vulnerabilities that have been widely exploited over a very short period of time. And so, the difference is how fast and how short a period of time can an organization that produces ransomware as a service get their hooks into something? And then, they're there. They may come back later and say, hey, look, we'll wait until this particular political circumstance goes away or what have you. And so we're also starting to see something. We found this nuanced behavior this last week is, models that are capable of performing ransomware and mutating techniques in the middle of it. So Quinn 3 as a model is doing this, today. So what I think we're seeing is, instead of my baseball coach in high school would always say, we're not rebuilding, we're reloading, right? In this sense, this is the same philosophy that's playing out here, whether it's, it's the QN, or it's the Crux guys, the Black Bite guys, all of which have mutations of what they do into new sets of offerings for others to take advantage of.
Yeah. Alan, let me give some historical context. Back in 1996, almost 30 years ago, I was the director of technology for the National Computer Security Association. We had that little logo, NCSA approved, that went on all malware. It was antivirus at the time. That has evolved to the ICSA, which evolved and was acquired ICSA Labs, which is now part of Verizon. That little logo is still there 30 years later. I think the point of the matter is that all this malware has been here for 30 years and has found a way to evolve and has found a way to get worse and also is going to be prolific. I mean, there's a couple of technologies I see, like Arm Cyber has like little, kind of like embedding in the kernel type of thing. But until we actually find a way to stop it, and then we need to get it across all computers. Because yes, some companies might find a way to be better and be more resilient against it. But these criminals are like, Frank, I was a CISO for like a SaaS provider that focused on the SLED market, state local education. These like school districts, municipalities are prolific at being hit by these ransomware purveyors because they don't have the budgets to do things properly. And these people are going to be hit again and again and again. And even though you might see large companies be less hit by it, there's going to be more than enough people who are going to be hit by ransomware, which is a generation or two old, because these computers are still out there. So for somebody to say ransomware is going to go away, that the criminals have too much money involved in this, and there's just so much cyber poverty out there. It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. I haven't heard cyber poverty that Wendy Nather. I've heard the term. I haven't heard it in a while. Wendy Nather used to talk about it a lot. My friend Wendy. I'm sure you guys know Wendy.
That's right. The lower the poverty line, right?
Yeah.
So am I reading this correctly though? Essentially, this stuff comes in waves, and every time there's a downturn, we think that we're doing something magical, and the next thing we turn around and we're getting clobbered again. Is that how this continues to go?
Well, what happens is when you look at the delivery mechanisms, the good part is a lot of more companies are using, I'm not endorsing these, but they're using Gmail, they're using Microsoft 365 and things, which are getting better at filtering out attacks. However, as these services filter out the attacks, the criminal, it's an arms race. When can they start getting things through? Then they can start doing other things to proactively hack directly into targets, as opposed to just using phishing to get in and so on. So, again, mostly it's an arms race, assuming you're not dealing with just a straight out attack against an organization to get a foothold in it.
Yeah, there's a couple of pervasive behaviors that we see, right? And, phishing obviously is in the top of that, right? Now you've got some pretty advanced types of phishing, you've got deep fakes, all of those types of things. But in addition to that, you've also got some of the standards, old and tried and true, right? VPN accounts and RDP accounts that aren't properly secured. And these types of things are, the binaries that exist successfully on every system. We call law bins, right? These are living off the land binaries that exist in the Windows boxes that are potentially exploitable. And adversaries are using the tools that they have, right? So some of the challenges are when we look at whether or not somebody is hitting bcedit.exe, right? That's a known thing to back up environments. And so how do we get there? Well, maybe we drop the node day on, Fortinet, right? Gotta love those guys. They have the most software vulnerabilities of any software vendor, but they take advantage of those opportunities. And then, they get legitimate credentials and they run around and they'll do it over whatever period of time. But the thing that's interesting to me about this is the timeline for how fast it happens now. And, there used to be a window of time where that could be 3 days, to break out, right? CrowdStrike put out a report about this where the breakout window used to be 3 days, 5 years ago. Now it's 49 minutes. So, and breakout time is defined as the moment you pivot off of a particular exploited box into other places, aka lateral movement. And so when we look at that, if 49 minutes is the average behavioral time for that type of movement within an attack, then we know that, the speed of these things has changed dramatically. So the arms race, right? Just like us to get to the moon, just like us to build our AI infrastructure, is this arms race to be able to defend ourselves before known tools that we use every day continue to, become a mature development life cycle for adversaries.
Agreed. I mean, and don't think AI doesn't play a role in there though too, Fred, right? Mm-hmm. Helping these guys get better.
100%.
Hopefully it will help the defenders get better too. But to Fred's point, Ira, are we mentally prepared for that level of stress? Because this game is moving into real time. And, it seems like we were already freaking out as it was. So now if everything's happening, it sounds like it'll only be a matter of time before we're measuring this in seconds.
Well, I'm kind of stoic about this. You shouldn't be in this industry if you're not capable of handling the stress of attacks becoming more prolific and getting quicker. Because it's like one of those things. You can't be a police officer and expect everybody to just say hi as you're walking around your beat. You don't know what you're going to be hit with at any point in time. Good programs will have automation. Unfortunately, programs that are, I'll keep using the word cyber poverty, they're going to get more difficult. But ideally, people are going to get used to this. There's going to be better tools in use that hopefully help these people out a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, it's just a fact of life. And if you can't go ahead and deal with attacks are getting quicker and better, then frankly, this isn't the industry for you. I mean, the industry for you involves your technology, your interests, but also the level of mental stress you can put up with. And maybe a GRC job would be better than a hands-on operator job, as an example. So, because there's a lot of jobs in cybersecurity, and, it's just a fact of life. I remember when, again, maybe I'm dating myself, but in the 1990s, admins were out there with zero protections that they had, and they were getting hit by people just randomly scanning, doing ping scans and everything else, finding vulnerabilities, and that was what they did. They kept repelling, trying to patch, close people out. 30 seconds later, the person was back in, and they were back to protecting. I hate to say it's just the nature of the job, but that's what we need to accept.
It is. It is. And you know what? Things have gotten a lot more complex because back then you had the moat and the castle, right? You just had to worry about the castle door for them to come in. The term of backdoor kind of attack really meant something. Today, your attack surface is all over the place. You don't even know you're a full attack surface, most people. So it is. It's a cat and mouse game. You're the cat. The mouse is always a little bit ahead. They're well-financed. They're well-funded, and they make a lot of money. And Ira, you're right. If you don't have the thick enough skin for that particular role, you shouldn't do it because you're only going to get burnt out and depressed.
So CISOs should put pictures of Harry Truman up in their office saying, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Is that where we're going?
That's been it in security. If you can't, you'd get out. That's the nature of it. When nothing happens, it's a good day.
Yeah, I mean, it's I got to admit, I'm a little less. So I look at stress levels of CISOs, which is serious. And yeah, CISOs are under a lot of stress, but I look at the people who work for them. These people are actually doing day-to-day stressful things, but they don't have the money a lot of CISOs have. And to me, somebody worried about making their rent payment and dealing with, can't deal with childcare and something like that while working a job 24-hour shift work is a little bit more stressful than the person at the top. And so I appreciate
the front lines of security. Yeah.
We have to appreciate everybody is in there is going to experience stress. And sometimes not all jobs are right for everybody. If you want to be a librarian, go be a librarian if that's what your mentality is meant for. But if you're in cybersecurity, I hate to say it, depending on the role, your job is essentially being a firefighter where you're going in, and that's all there is to it.
I think you're right, Ira. My last thing on this is that a lot of people get deputized in an incident, and they're not cybersecurity professionals, right?
Well, it used to be that's how people became security people, right? They were network people or whatever, or help desk people. And when stuff hit the fan, go look at the logs. What are you seeing, Fred? Right? Exactly. That's how it was.
So the best cybersecurity people are adrenaline junkies, right? They're in it for the fight and they enjoy that. But the truth of the matter is you can only keep that up for so long and they're going to burn out.
Well, it depends on the processes they put in place, because this is the Ira Winkler philosophy of organization, of cybersecurity programs. It's like a ship at sea where it's off course 90% of the time. You put a process in place that keeps it kind of knowing that there's little things here and there that are going to push it off, and you keep it running. That's what makes good cybersecurity programs good cybersecurity programs. Every so often there's a bigger wave, but they know how to deal with it. And if you can't, another thing we haven't spoken about, I mentioned it a little bit, is outsourcing most of your infrastructure, because cloud computing does allow for offloading a significant amount of your work. Like if you can't maintain an internal infrastructure well and secure, you can outsource it to Office 365 or whatever. You can't outsource everything, but you can outsource most of the internal SaaS function or use SaaS applications to deal with a lot. And those providers are there and do serve a good purpose in offloading a lot of your security, assuming these are good providers. I'll leave it at that.
And we're going to leave it at that right here, too, because that about wraps up our show today on The Gang. I hope you've enjoyed it as usual. We have TechStrong TV following The Gang today, a couple hours worth of more programming. But until Monday, have a great weekend, everyone. Ira, Fred, Lisa, and Mike, thanks for helping me out and joining us here on The Gang. Thank you for watching. We'll see you Monday. Try to stay safe, and think maybe a cybersecurity career is for you. We haven't scared you off yet. Until next time, I'm Alan Schimmel. Thanks for joining us. We're out.